this is Mike Byrnes with another episode of Business Bests. Recently did some recordings on client service and ran out of time. It's such a big topic, so I wanted to start there and dive in. It's so important to have that as your foundation of your organization, whatever you do. Happy clients is kind of the secret of success, and it actually will make you more successful in every facet. You know, you'll be able to prospect better, you'll be able to have better strategic alliances, you'll have even happier employees, and everything will go really well if you have client service that's exceptional. If you don't have great client service, a whole bunch of kind of cancerous things can happen within an organization, and it usually doesn't work out so great. So one thing that I think is important for people to know is that client service really starts with the individual. It's okay for someone at the top to say, hey, here, this is how we do it. Previously, I talked about service models and different things. And that kind of stuff can be set at a higher level. But really, the one that's on the front lines with the clients, that person is so important. And so I put together a list of 15 things that will help you be better at client service. Number one, education. The more that you can work with your clients to get them to be comfortable with what you're talking about, if it's a complicated matter, really basically share everything that you know in a way that they can digest and it makes sense. So they might not ever have your sophistication. They might not have gone to school for that many years, or they might not have got the designations or the licenses or whatever it might be. But if you can get them to understand something and talk in a way that they will take away what you're trying to convince them to do, they'll love you for it. They will actually reward you. Some people are afraid to teach people because then they'll go do it on their own. I doubt that's the case. You know, they're actually have come to you for a good reason. There are some people that just will check out. They don't care. Hey, we're paying you the dollars to go do what you got to do. There will be other people that will be the opposite of that. Not to pick on engineers or doctors or those types of people. If they're your clients, they're very smart and sometimes will get into the weeds too much. And that's something you can have to balance. But that education part is incredibly important. So when you start to think about how you can service your clients better, what do you put out in your email? How do you do video marketing? Do you create a video like this to get them to be a little bit better at what they know? Do you really plan part of the meeting, if you have a face-to-face meeting, with, hey, here's some things that we're going to talk about, but before we get into that, I just want to let you know, like, here's kind of the background on why we make some of these decisions, or here's a history on X, Y, and Z topic. That can be super valuable. Even like having a webinar, here's the 101 on X, Y, Z topic. You're going to actually just let people opt in for that, and you can gauge within your own client base how many people attend to something that is just educational in nature. The other thing is, if you're in a regulated industry, so for like financial advisors with SEC or FINRA, when it comes to marketing and maybe getting in trouble, educating your clients usually never falls in that category, right? So it's a wonderful way to market and strengthen your brand and get your message out by just helping your clients understand things in a deeper way. Number two is preparation. I think sometimes we get so busy in our day-to-day lives and we don't just spend the 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe it takes an hour or more to prepare for a meeting. That can be incredibly valuable. Looking at the notes that you took last time, assuming you're taking notes. Hopefully you're using like AI to use as a note taker or something like that if you're not taking them yourself. How do you prepare? What do? You should have a routine. Leverage technology. For me, I can't remember names, for example. So if I look right before the meeting and say, hey, my clients' grandkids' names are X, Y, and Z, and then I can ask about them, that type of connection is so valuable. So you're really going to want to start to think about how you can prepare for a meeting. Sometimes you can over-prepare. You get too rigid, like your agenda is just like jam-packed of 15 things you got to cover in a meeting. But the reality is they only want to talk about maybe one or two topics in there. So be careful that you don't over-prepare. But usually, if you're a professional and you're well prepared, then you have the choice to go into those 15 things if you want to do it. I oftentimes kind of see people plan meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and they're all back to back to back to back. And then they have someone walk in and they haven't prepared, and they say, well, what are we here to talk about today? And like, you're the one that's getting paid to service them. If you have that kind of conversation, you've dropped the ball, right? Like that's a bad negative interaction with your clients. Also start to think about what are those things that you could do to prepare for all your clients. So maybe you have routine meetings and there's a theme to it, right? So what could you pull through all of them so that you maybe have a similar conversation that repeats? And again, utilizing CRM and contact management systems to record what you did. And then that allows you to prepare better for the next time too. You're setting up your success by having really good notes so that you can go back and leverage them. And the next time you could even put notes in the contact management system and say, hey, we didn't get to topic C, D, E, and F. We just got to A and B. So, maybe recap with A and B, check in to see how they're doing on the to-dos there, but then let's get into those other things. So that type of preparation is going to help you be more successful when it comes to client service. Number 3 is confidence and experience. They could be two different things, but I put them together because someone that is inexperienced still can be confident. And then someone that is really experienced might be overconfident or not confident enough. So they're not quite the same, but they really go hand in hand. The more that you can talk about stories, whether it's your own experience or you're pulling from somewhere else, or you've maybe even utilized something that you've learned in the industry, the more you're going to come across as an expert, obviously, and the more that people are going to trust you and want to listen to you and follow the advice that you're giving them. So how do you get that across without being too overly confident? I think about it from a consulting standpoint, or if you're a baseball coach, or if you're any kind of professional that you're trying to help people. If you just kind of talk down to people, it never works. So be careful when it comes to confidence that you're not cocky or arrogant or, again, condescending. Confidence comes with, hey, I really understand your problem and I'm here for you. And if you'll allow me, I'd love to help you. That type of way, type of approach works better than, hey, I know exactly what you're doing wrong and you got to do this. And you kind of force your advice on them rather than letting them understand you're the expert and letting them come to trust that, and then they're open to it. You've opened the door for it. When it comes to confidence too, be careful not to be confident about things that you don't know what the answer is. Like, you don't have a crystal ball, for example. If you are overly confident about maybe where the financial markets are going to go and politics and whatever, that can just make you look foolish, right? Like I think it's okay to admit that you can't be super confident across the board on every single topic, right? So pick and choose where you kind of come across that way. Number 4, to be great at client service, are people skills. It is amazing how many people kind of leave that part aside. Professionals get into what they do too much, and they don't necessarily tap into the human side of things. Just being aware of body language, for example, is something that can help from a people skill standpoint to allow you to know, can you move forward? Does the person look irked at what you're telling them? Do they look like they're super confused? Do they look like they're just impatient and ready to move on? There will be so many tells in a conversation, especially if you can do it in person, that you can pick up on. And knowing that stuff, that body language type of stuff, allows you to excel at people skills. You can't. The old Monopoly saying, you can't go past go and collect $200, whatever the saying is. Like, same thing. Like, you got to have some checkpoints in a conversation. Are you talking too much? Do you know that they are with you? What can allow you to do that? If you're working with couples, so it's a married couple, do you have them both rowing in the same way? Do you need to pause and say, hey, do you guys agree? Or do you want to pause and say, do you both understand this? I talked about previously in another recording about the dating game and actually allowing people both to be able to talk. But the people skills part is really wonderful. So make sure that you're actually figuring out how you could always be better at that, because it is such a key part to client service. Your natural personality some people just are wonderful at it. They are just hit the ball out of the park every single time. And other people are not so great at it. I've sit in my client meetings with their clients just to observe them. And I try not to be too critical, but you just see some people are lacking the people skills part. They're really good at what they do otherwise. They have the smarts, they have the experience, they have the knowledge. They might even back it up with the products and services that they're providing, but they're missing the people skills part. So don't be afraid to figure that out. One thing you can do is actually have someone else observe you. So it doesn't have to be a consultant. It could be another person, a third party outside your organization, or someone within your organization. And just, with the client's permission, say, hey, I'd love to have this person sit in for a continuity of services across our company, or just to get a second opinion. And that person really just tries to listen as much as they can, and watch and see, were you good at picking up QA, and did you see when that person kind of rolled their eyes and that type of thing, to make sure that you really know what you're doing. Number 5 is listening. So that number 4 was kind of like picking up things that you see with your eyes. Number 5 is listening, and I've said it before. Active listening is really important. You'll hear people say that listening and hearing is different. That can be confusing for some people, but listening just does not just mean the sound going in your ears. It means, did your brain process it? Did it register? Did it make sense? How do you go from there? If you are hearing the sound, but you're just kind of beating the drum and moving forward at your own pace, and you're not adjusting to the stuff that's actually, these sound waves that are going in your brain, you're going to not be doing a great service to your clients. So how can you be better at listening? This is something that is so important. You can actually start to work on this stuff at home. The active listening part, I think sometimes next time you have an argument with a spouse, with a kid or a parent, or whoever it might be, someone that you just have a little bit of a conflict with, or at least a healthy debate, try to figure out how you could use active listening to make it better. So let's just say it's two friends out having a drink and they're having a great time, and then politics comes up and they're completely at odds. If one person says, hey, X, Y, and Z, and this is why the other side's bad and that's awful, and then the next person goes, well, the other side's really bad and this is why they're awful, you missed an opportunity there. So if the second person heard the first person, so rather than just the sound, but they actually registered it, they could say, hey, I want you to know, like this is what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say you have a problem with X, Y, and Z, and I want you to know I completely understand where you're coming from, but I want you to know I have a different point of view. Would you be okay with me sharing that? Now that person might actually do some active listening with you too. Like they might actually be opening to hearing what you're saying. One of the worst things with listening, why we're so bad at it, is that we actually are kind of thinking about what we're going to say next. Catch yourself if you kind of are hearing your own voice talking over the people, like, hey, I got to intersect here, I got to say this, and this is something, you're really going to be awful at it. I recently wrote an article with, it was a keynote speaker at a conference in Boston, and he was an interrogator. And I'll maybe find a way to repost it again so you can see it. But he talked about people that leave breadcrumbs. And so this is, people that are the enemy, and they were in one-on-one conversations, and he would get breadcrumbs. And if he picked up on them and he was actively listening, rather than kind of going to, here's the series of questions I have to have, and I got to drive in on that topic over there. But the reality is you're getting the breadcrumb that's leading you somewhere else, and it's going to actually take you in a place that's going to help you, but you're just not listening to them because you're so set on firing off these questions that you want to hear, firing off that advice that you need to get across, you're really going to drop the ball. So think about active listening. How can you be better at it? We all can be better at it. There's all kinds of statistics. I didn't want to put them in here and date this, but the reality is that we don't listen as much as we think we do. And it's kind of an eye-opener. If you don't believe me, go do a Google search on this stuff. There's so much that people say that just doesn't register in our brains. So find a way to make sure that you're always improving on this. It's going to help you not just in your business, but it'll help you in your personal life too. I guarantee it. Number 6 is kindness, empathy, caring. It actually flows really well. So I talked about people skills and I talked about listening. This is a slightly different category, but they kind of are like it's like a triangle. They all are intersecting in some ways, and it's really important. So back to listening, if you were actually actively listening and boom, they hit some trigger in them that's important, maybe you don't care about it. Maybe their pet died. Hey, I never had a pet, or I didn't have a cat, or whatever it might be. I don't care. I'm going to go on to the next thing. You have to be empathetic. That's how you make that human connection. When you make a human connection, you are going to be registered as a way better person that delivers really great client service. So even though what you're getting paid for, you're hitting the ball out of the park for. Let's say you are wonderful at delivering your services, but I'll just stick with the cat example. Someone mentions that their cat just died, and you go right on to all the stuff that you do in your day-to-day job and didn't pause to hear about how they felt about losing their family member, right? Even though it's a pet, to you, it might be just an animal. To them, it was someone that they cared for 15 years. I know as a dog owner, my dog died. A lot of people come out of the woodwork that are dog owners, right? Like they'll come out and support you, but people that don't own a pet are not going to do that. I don't mean to focus just in on deceased pets, but that's just a really good example of you saying, hey, there's an opportunity for me to pause and look at them in the eye and make an emotional connection. Just ask the questions, how are you feeling after that happened? And let them go on. Don't cut them off. Even you might have the agenda of 15 things you want to cover in your meeting, but reality, just to hear them talk about some concern they have in their life, whatever it might be. Maybe they have kids going off to college, or grandkids maybe getting in a little bit of trouble, and there's some issue in the family. All kinds of family issues arise all the time. No family's perfect, right? So if those types of things, these are like blatant examples of like things that just say, hey, pause and ask the right question. Ask question after question after question, dig in a little bit more, and then do the active listening. But make a connection too, say, hey, I really understand what you're going through. Or be open and say, you know what, I've never had that happen to me. I can only imagine what it's like. And even saying that term, I got to be careful. Like, I kind of say, I know what you're going through. They might not be apples to apples, right? So there's a time when you use that type of language, and there's another time that goes, man, I can't imagine what you're going through. That type of connection too can make really great sense. Where I see people make a big disconnect is they want to interject their sorrow from 3 years ago to say, hey, yeah, I have a war story too. I always think of that scene in Jaws when they're on the boat and they're showing their tattoos and, like they're trying to one-up each story. Don't be a one-upper. You can actually get your history of something that's related across as long as you're not trying to outdo their story. Sometimes that's funny at a pub and everyone kind of piles on a story. I got one for you and I got one for you. That could be okay. But if you're really trying to be empathetic, it's their time to have the stage. If they have the stage rather than you can't go wrong, right? Because if they have the stage, you're giving them special attention. The light's on them and they're going to feel special just because of that. So when you start to think about how to be empathetic, think about that example. Like, how can you make them feel special just by connecting with them? Empathy doesn't always have to be sad things too. How can you celebrate their joys? milestones in their life, actually digging in a little bit more to say, hey, wow, you guys are married for 50 years. That's fantastic. Can you share a little advice how you got here? And then just let them go on. They got 50 years of experience. That type of connection, and then every once in a while, inserting the right types of words, like, oh, that's amazing, or that's something that, the less, if they're on a roll, the less that you can insert your words in it, the better that they're going to connect. But you also don't want them to go on for 20 minutes without any kind of insertion. If you don't insert your words in a little bit here and there, it's kind of like a face-to-face meeting. They can still read your body language, but imagine you're on a phone with somebody and you haven't said anything for 15 minutes. They're eventually going to say, are you listening? So make sure that you balance the right amount of interaction, but when you're empathetic, you really got to go back to those tips that I was talking about with listening. Number 7, a wonderful way to improve with client service is personalization. If you're not customizing what you're doing, how you're communicating, etc., you're not going to make a connection. So to make a connection, what you really want to do is figure out what are all the ways that I can service this client and make them feel like this is just for them. I am a big believer of utilizing technology to do this. So you might run a client list and say, here's 3 categories. Category A, B, and C might apply to everybody, but I want to segment my clients, and that the A's really need to hear a specific language, specific thing, specific to them. Then you can actually message them in a way that says, hey, because I know you're here, this advice is specific just to you. Well, in that one-on-one meeting, wow, that feels like it's just for them. But now, let's just say a third of your client base needs that same thing. So you've now personalized at scale. There's other better examples of that, but you've now personalized, and you're actually making them feel like they're getting that one-on-one attention. Let them know where you customize, and let them feel special. If you feel like you're just one of a number in a herd, you're never going to have that type of feeling that you're getting the best client service, right? If you're going, think about it, if you're kind of going and buying something and nobody knows your name, or if you go and they don't have a lot of choices for you, you can kind of only get one size fits all type of service, that's where you're not going to have a great connection. And guess what? They're not going to rate those firms as great with client service. What can you do from a customization standpoint? Look back at everything that you've said to those people within the last year, and then everything that you've sent to them in the last year, and say, and just rate, have a scorecard for yourself and rate yourself and say, hey, how did I do on that conversation, that one-on-one meeting, that phone call, that follow-up, that e-newsletter, that heads up, that preparation for the next meeting, all the different touch points that you go through. Rate yourself. Like how would they have felt from a personalization standpoint? What could you do to improve? Just dropping in their name is something that everybody kind of, that's not personalization, right? Just so like if you send out an e-newsletter and your database, it's clean and your database is clean, and it allows you to say, hey, dear Jim, here's our e-newsletter. That's not really personalization, right? I will say sometimes if you mention somebody's name in a subject line for email, we'll talk about email in another recording, but you will get more open rates. But if you overuse that, like if you just kind of personalize something that's going out to everybody, you've lost your audience, because that trick is not going to work anymore. So think about how you can make them feel customized within your communications. So every one of those touch points, rate yourself, and actually maybe get a third party to look at it too if you're not so good at evaluating yourself. This is also something, if you don't want to pay for a third party, get a team together and say, hey, we want to make an improvement in personalization. What could we do better? How can we leverage technology? And AI is going to help with this. So how can we start to look at all these things that are going to be coming at us and be better at it? Number 8 for being wonderful at client service is being honest and straightforward. Too many times people are trying to not look like they don't know what they're talking about, or overpromise and underdeliver, and that's how you can lose good clients, right? Or at least get them to be disgruntled. There's a time and a place that say, hey, we made a mistake, or hey, by the way, I know that you're looking for something from us that's really not our specialty, but I would love to connect you with someone else. Even in the prospecting standpoint, I know we're talking about client service, but eventually they're hopefully going to become clients, and just say, hey, I really want you to know, like, our that's not our strength. We're pretty good at it. There might be a competitor at it, but where our core competency is X, Y, and Z, and you kind of go into that. I really believe by teeing that up with the complete, blunt, honest part that actually makes you not look great, they're all ears to hear what you're going to say next, because you've now defused any kind of sensories that they had about, this person's full of hot air. You see people ramble when they don't have expertise, rather than just say, hey, can I get back to you on that? I know I have a lot of expertise on that, but I just want to make sure my knowledge is current, and I don't want to misquote you and give you something that isn't still holding true. Buy yourself a little time, right? And that will help you look smarter and will help you deliver better service as you go. So be really honest. Think about ways that you can make that connection. We all have these abilities to, have a sensor to say, hey, we kind of know that someone's lying. My son always talks about like spidey reflexes, like Spider-Man or whatever, but like you can have this sixth sense where you just kind of see that someone is lying. I mentioned the interrogator. There's, I think, all kinds of ways that we actually can know, like the way they look right or left, or their pace of speech, or all that stuff. So you're a human being, and if you're not really telling the truth, people will sense that. So be careful. One of the best ways to make a connection is just always tell the truth, and let them know that that's who you are. Your authentic version of you is just an honest person. Number 9 for being great at client service then is self-control. You want to be a little careful in how you would tell the truth from time to time. So I'll go outside of business advice. I coach a lot. There are 2 types of kids, right? It's a little oversimplified, but there's the one that you can get the message across in 10 to 30 seconds, and the other one that's going to take 5 minutes. Because you don't want to break them down and not feel, you don't want them to be that flower that just kind of wilts if you're a little too hard on them or too direct. Know your client base, right? And think about, all right, I have to deliver the truth. How can I do it in a way that is going to be the most effective? And think about different categories of clients and how the truth can impact all of them, because you're going to deliver the truth. I don't want you to change that, but I do want to maybe have you work on ways that you can control your messaging. And there are times where not every single thing should come out of your brain. For example, politics, very extreme. Are you getting paid to give your political advice to a client that's sitting across from you? So probably not, right? So be careful of how much of that stuff comes across. So self-control can mean a whole bunch of different things. It can mean laughing at the right time or not laughing. It can be meaning getting frustrated or not frustrated. What does that look like? Self-control is something I occasionally just see as an issue. I'm going to continue these tips in the next episode of Business Bests. I'm Mike Byrnes, and I hope that I am giving you some great advice to help your business become more successful.